welcome to another coffee break with Kardec, our weekly break where during these 15 minutes we have as a break, we have some coffee, tea, hot chocolate or cold drink. And during that time, we also learn something from the book Genesis according to Spiritism. The book Genesis is the most scientific of all of 5 Kardec's books. And also, at the end, Kardec studies the parables of Jesus and some passages from the Gospel. And as we all know, these parables, they are very rich in information, but they were told in those days in the form of a story, in an allegorical form. So the parable we are going to talk about today is the parable of the murderous Vinedressers. And in this parable, we see that there is a father of a family, and this father of a family had a piece of land, and he planted a vineyard. And he moved far away from his property, but he had left some Vinedressers looking after it. And when the grapes were ripe, were ready to be harvested, he sent some workers there. But then the Vinedressers, they thought that the property was theirs, and they didn't like the idea of having these servants sent by the owner. And what they did, they hurt some, they killed some others, and so in the end, they couldn't do their work there, because they found this hostile ambient. And then the owner of the land sent some more workers there, and they were received in the same manner. They were killed and couldn't do their job. So the owner said, well, I'll send someone who has some authority. I'll send my son there. Then they will obey him. So that's what he did. But then his son was received in the same manner. He was mocked, he was hurt, and then in the end he was killed. And this in this situation, the Vinedressers, they thought that, well, in doing so, we will now have the property for ourselves. And the question is, when the owner of the vineyard comes, how will he treat those Vinedressers? How will he treat them? Do we expect him to treat them nicely? Or will he treat them, and make them die in a miserable way and put other Vinedressers in their place and at the right time? Well, Jesus, we know that Jesus talked in parables. And why Jesus talked in parables? We probably know that people, those at his time, they were very simple people. They were very much developed in intellectual terms. We know that those who were more advanced in terms of knowledge and understanding were those who usually were connected to the temple, the scribes, the high priests, the Pharisees, and people in general. They were very ignorant in terms of their intellectual aspects, and sometimes even the moral aspect wasn't very much developed. So Jesus went to talk to them, because despite their condition, they had a very good heart. And Jesus wanted to sow the seeds in their hearts. So when we look at the parable, and the parable is a very nice way, it's a story. And in this story, you talk to people at different levels. Depending on the level and understanding, we grasp the meaning in a more, I would say, simple or in a more, in a broader way. these understanding. So we see this as a parable. We find it in Matthew chapter 21, verses 33 to 41. And in this story, who is the father of the family? The father of the family is God. And the vineyard he planted is the divine law that he established. Divine law, we mean in general terms the divine laws, the universal laws. These laws, they are the ones that govern all the creation, the expression of God's love. God expressed his love through his laws, and these laws, they govern all his creation. And the grapes are the fruits from this vineyard. People, the spirits, acting according to these universal laws, always in accordance and not breaking these laws. The Vinedressers are those who should teach and practice the law. Teach and practice. Teach because they will have a better understanding. We, as we know, as the spirits, we grow intellectually, we evolve intellectually and morally. So we could say in simple terms that the teachings are related to our understanding, our intellectual side, and the practice is related to our moral side, when we act in the world according to these laws. So they were the ones responsible for that. And the servants were sent to the vineyard. They were the prophets at the ancient times. Nowadays we have other people, we could say some mediums, who are the ones that bring the teachings from, the enlightened spirits, to show us how to follow the way. Jesus said he, was the path, the truth and life. And when he said that, is that he came to teach us. So I'm already telling you that the son of the owner of this property, the vineyard, is Jesus. And we see that this story, this parable, is telling us that God, through time, sends people first to teach what we as humanity should learn, and to show, to exemplify how we should behave in order for us as spirits to progress. So we have universal laws. We have these laws that are the expression of God. We are subject to them, even on a physical level. The physical laws in the physical world that govern everything in the physical world, they are also instances. They are aspects of these broadened collection of laws, which are the universal laws. For those who are interested in learning more about these laws, I advise to read the Spirit's book. In the Spirit's book, we see not only the attributes of God, but also these laws that we are subject to. And as we learn them, we start to behave, to practice those laws within ourselves with our behavior. And so Jesus exemplifies that people of those days, and they were represented by the scribes, the high priests, the Pharisees. They were the ones supposed to guide people towards God through his universal laws. But in fact, what happened, and we see from Jesus's time until nowadays, we see that those who were responsible for that, in the end, what they did, instead of bringing us the teachings that were the ones we were supposed to receive, if these Vinedressers were acting accordingly, these teachings should guide humanity towards God, in the sense that we should be practicing more and more the laws of God, the law of love, the law of justice, for instance. This would be part of it. But on the contrary, instead of looking after the flock, what they did was actually to look after themselves in material terms. And we see that through the centuries, the Christian teachings, the Christian examples that Jesus showed us, he taught us, because the language, the understanding was very limited at that time, and there wasn't the best way to teach people other than exemplified, showing them how to behave. Nowadays we have, the heavy spiritism also to bring us to add to what Jesus had brought to us, to actually unfold what Jesus had left to us in terms of examples, in practice, and in terms of teachings. Were basically the parables that we have. And it's very interesting, because in Genesis, Kardec goes through several parables and then analyze them in the light of our present days, in the light of the Spiritism. So they abused of this authority. We've been seeing that since Jesus' time until nowadays. So 18, 19, now 20 centuries after receiving the teachings directly through the son of the owner of the land, of the vineyard, Jesus. So we see that the result was that wasn't the one that was expected to enlighten humanity. On the contrary, we saw people being tortured, persecuted. We see those who were the Vinedressers, supposed Vinedressers, that they were actually worshipping, power, riches, status, instead of teaching the true values to people. So what has been the result of those who, throughout this long period of time, let's say this 2,000 years, they have been in charge of humankind's religious education, because they were responsible initially for religious education in a broader sense. Religion in principle should actually show us, present God through these universal laws, and help us to act according to these laws. But on the contrary, what we've seen was indifference related to faith, disbelief, and skepticism, and all sorts of things that actually are the results, contrary to what should have been. Denial. We see society nowadays, how many people don't like the word, even the word religion or God or Jesus, because what that brings to them is this impression left through the centuries of torture, of imposition, and the essence actually vanished through that. And now people reject religion by the idea of what religion is, through the examples of not how to behave. So it was a contrary that was expected through the centuries. Advise people also to see the gospel according to Spiritism, where the results of these distortions of the moral principles that Jesus taught us through the centuries, and what has happened, and also the essence of his teachings. The maxims of charity, love, tolerance, that's these should be taught to humanity in terms of kindness, simplicity, humility. These were the original teachings, because in these teachings, they are not teachings that are supposed to be imposed in us, for us. They are actually showing us what these universal laws are and how in our behavior we can express them. When we were told, we are gods, we were told that we are like an acorn that has all the potential of a fully grown oak tree. But we have to develop that. But on the contrary, the conditions put around us were actually such that created resistance, prevented us from developing ourselves as a fully developed tree. So they made jealous, cruel, vengeful, biased God out of the one that proclaimed to be infinitely just, good, and merciful. Jesus taught us Heavenly Father as a Father that is infinitely just, good, and merciful. And then what we've seen is those responsible for cultivating that in humanity, they showed us, on the contrary, they showed us a jealous, cruel, vengeful, biased God that gives more importance to what we have in material terms, the position we have in society, rather than the condition of our hearts. So basically, this parable talks about that. Of course, I just simplified the explanation, so I advise you to read Kardec regarding these passages. Very, very enlightening. And we should also see ourselves as the Vinedressers. All that we receive in terms of teachings, of opportunity, of developing ourselves, that we don't have a religion for us to blindly follow it. No, we should have a religion as a means for us to connect ourselves with the whole, to connect ourselves with God and Jesus through the practicing of virtues. And virtues means to act according to these natural, universal, divine laws. I hope that it was a pleasant coffee break for you, as it was for me, and hope to see you in another coffee break with Kardec. Bye-bye for now.